Welcome to The Mystic Tie, a podcast for Freemasons. You can find us online at mystictie.com. Email me feedback, guest suggestions, and any other questions at troy@mystictie.com. Dr. David Harrison is a UK-based Masonic historian and lecturer who has written 15 books on the history of English Freemasonry and has published many papers and articles. Harrison has also appeared frequently on TV and radio discussing his work, and he is with us today to discuss his most recent book, The Life and Death of John Yarker. Please welcome Brother David Harrison. Brother Dr. David Harrison, thank you for joining us today on the Mystic Tie podcast.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much. Yeah.
It's a pleasure to have you here. I've heard a number of your interviews and I've read a number of your books. We've got you on the podcast thanks to our friends at Lewis Masonic. I guess at our recent book table, we had a pile of your books available, but the one that got a bunch of notice was this one, The Life and Death of John Yarker. And so as that's your latest publication, let's get started with that. You want to tell me what so fascinated you about this important figure?
Well, yeah, with Yarker, I've always been interested in John Yarker. Always been interested in esoteric Freemasonry. So obviously John Yarker was the big go-to guy, really, in regards to this. And it was during the COVID period, the 2020 kind of period when we was all locked down.
Yep.
And I just wanted to get into some research to keep myself busy, really. So John Yarker became the main focus. I'd mentioned a bit about him. I discussed him in one of my books called The Lost Rites and Rituals of Freemasonry, which came out a few years before. And I thought, yeah, that's it. That's the one. Yeah. And
I have copies.
Yeah. Fantastic. And that book was great because that really relaunched my kind of career away from the guidebook stuff. I'd gotten into this rut where I'd started doing these guidebook things, which were great. And one of them, called A Quick Guide to Freemasonry, that has become one of my all-time bestsellers. So I kind of lapsed into this kind of guidebook thing. I did another guidebook called the Masonic Guide to York, I think it was, or the something like that. Anyway, and that's still selling quite well as well.
I don't have any of that, but I have.
Oh, right.
One.
Oh, yeah, that one. Yeah. Freemasonry Fraternal Societies. Yeah. Well, yeah. I was kind of getting into this kind of like comfortable routine of knocking out a book a year. And it was like, it was good because they were selling okay, and The Quick Guide to Freemasonry really sold well, and still is. It's still on the bestsellers list with Lewis Masonic. It's always present there. It's a big seller, really. But I wanted something more. I wanted to write a bit more, and I was obviously being pulled towards the esoteric side. And Lost Rites and Rituals was really my first venture into the more esoteric side of things, and I touched on Yarker there, and I really wanted to take that further. So biography was like the next step. So during COVID, I basically started doing research. I got all his books together, all his papers together. We started. I think there was some. The restrictions were lifted around about May or June 2020, and that's when I started kind of going around to where he lived, in South Manchester, Didsbury, around there. So that was really interesting because I love field work, because I was an archaeologist as well at one time. So I love getting into the places where these people live, and I had a great time doing research around South Manchester, and then went up to Cumbria, Shap in Swindale, where Yarker originated from. And again, like visited the places where he was, and seeing the things that he saw, and the culture that he was in. So yeah, I was building up all this research, and the biography was the result, really. And I think from all the books I've ever written, I really enjoyed doing that book. It was a journey as well, discovering Yarker and his ideas.
Yeah, and it's very influential, right? Especially during the 1880s, 19 to the 1920s, when the occult revival, the more recent occult revival, was in full swing, and the Golden Dawn came out of nowhere, and Crowley and all that, and Yarker has intersections with all of this stuff. Had anybody attempted to write a biography of Yarker? Because there's no end of Crowley biographies, right? And then
there's loads of Crowley biographies.
Quite a few of the formative people in the Golden Dawn are all extensively documented and biographied, right? And there's a lot of historical documents.
Well, Yarker wasn't Golden Dawn. He was. I see Yarker as a bit more working class, so I kind of affiliate. I have this affiliation with him in a way, because it was a bit more northern. It was a bit more working. It was some, working class kind of origins, really, in North Cumbria.
Yep.
And obviously there was a Salford connection as well, which was interesting. And but yeah, to answer your question, there was when I first started the biography, I was making inquiries, and someone said to me, "Oh yeah, there's a guy that's been doing a Yarker biography for a few decades or something," and it was to kind of like suggest that, oh yeah, there's some guy already doing that, it was quite strange, because I was kind of trying to get into places to look at Yarker related material, and it was quite hard to actually get into them. I don't know if that was because of the COVID thing, or because of the restrictions, and people weren't really working as much as they were, or they used to be before, working from home or whatever.
Right.
And I couldn't get access to a lot of the library related material. So that became like a bit of a difficult part to it, really. But I kind of overcome that in the end. But so there was some guy that was doing a biography, or I was told he was anyway. And then someone got in touch with me when I started kind of putting it about that I was doing the Yarker biography. Someone else got in touch and said, "Oh yeah, there's another guy doing it as well. There's another guy doing a biography."
A third guy.
So I thought, oh, all right, so there's two doing this now. Two others, So, but yeah, you just plow on with your own ideas. I mean, the thing is, as you mentioned, there's so many biographies on Crowley, and they're all different.
Yep.
There's not one of them that's the same. And I thought, well, it doesn't really matter, because mine's going to be completely different from theirs. If they bring theirs out, the same time as mine, then yeah, it might affect the sales, and it might affect the market slightly, but in the end, it's going to be more choice for people to read it, and to view the different biographies, the different styles. So I wasn't really that bothered about it, really. If someone else was bringing one out, it doesn't really matter in the overall scheme of things.
Yeah, and who better than you, with you're sort of known for this intersection between esoteric and fringe masonry, and with sort of an academic historical leaning, right? And you've published enough, right? So I think you're the perfect choice sort of a sympathetic ear to somebody like Yarker who might not get the sympathetic ear depending on what your esoteric affiliations for a practitioner.
I mean, it was
right. There's all that tension. We're going to talk about that later, but there is a lot of tension in the craft. I'd call it esoteric Freemasonry.
Yeah. It's a nicer word, to use. Yeah, the word esoteric is what we call like a soft language for occult, really, for the occult. There's various different kind of soft words that you can use to replace the harder words.
Yeah.
And esoteric is obviously one of those that is used to replace the harder word of occult. Yeah. So I think with Yarker, going back to what you mentioned before about my kind of liking of Yarker, that obviously helped my enjoyment of the research, and it was obviously going to be sympathetic to Yarker. When I first started looking at occult stuff many years ago, or esoteric stuff many years ago, Yarker was always someone that stood out because there was a few papers and things like that were didn't look at him in a nice light, unfavorable. But the deeper that I kind of went into the Yarker life and his Masonic career, I understood that he left mainstream Freemasonry because he wanted to delve deeper into esoteric research, and he wasn't happy with mainstream Freemasonry. He just didn't like it anymore. It wasn't doing anything for him, and as he mentioned a few times, he was fed up of the promotion aspect, like people chasing chain chasers, as it's sometimes referred to, people that are chasing promotions all the time. And he left mainstream Freemasonry in 1862, which is when his infant son died that year. And there was living in Manchester, the whole economic side of things as well was taking a downturn because of the American Civil War, and the cotton connection, because Manchester was one of the leading, well, if not the leading cotton producer of the time. So there was obviously an economic downturn in Manchester, which probably affected his career to a certain point. So it was a pretty miserable year in 1862 for him. And I always think that might have affected him in some way. I mean, there's no evidence for it, but it seems to be that he, thought, right, now's the time to leave and maybe to do some to explore the esoteric pathway, so to speak. And that's exactly what he did, So, which is very interesting. I think, it's one of those moments. I think we've all had them in Freemasonry where, I'm a bit fed up of it now. I could do with like taking a break, or even I've gone through that. Where you think,
well, yeah, let's switch gears for a minute and ask the show questions we ask everybody the first time on their appearance. Why and how did you join the craft?
Well, 28 years ago. Yeah, just over 28 years ago. So I joined because I'd left university in 1997, and I'd started seeing a girl whose father was a Freemason, and I was being introduced to all the social stuff, the garden parties. It was like a village lodge in Cheshire, So there was a big social scene, and there was all these garden parties, which were great. You know, in the summer you'd go around to these big houses and big gardens, and free beer and
Nice.
things like that,
Nice.
and sandwiches and
Right.
barbecues. It was great. It was really enjoyed it. It was a really relaxed kind of atmosphere, meeting people, and I was doing an MA at that particular time. I'd done my degree, which was in history and archaeology. And the archaeology side, I really wanted to pursue the archaeology side. And when I did, I realised there wasn't that much money in it. It was very, very low paid, and
A lot of dirt and not much money.
yeah. I didn't mind the dirt business. You know, that was great, scraping away and finding things. But then what would happen was that the leader of the dig would get all the glory, and all the finds would disappear. And you'd be there putting the trench, and kind of just digging away. And then they'd come over and say, "Oh, well, we've not had the grant yet, so I'm afraid we can't pay you yet." So so yeah, the money side of it was terrible, and especially when you leave university, you really need a job that's got some cash, so you can start to save up and replenish things, and you know and anyway, that didn't happen. So I decided to do an MA, and in history at the University of Liverpool, and I came to do my thesis, which was like 15,000 word thesis.
Mm.
And they said, well, would you like to do it on something strange and kind of exotic, something different? So I was seeing this girl whose father was a Freemason, and he got me into Freemasonry. He saw an opportunity and got me in there, and I loved it. It was like going back to the Victorian era. It was fantastic. History and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Little village lodge that met above a pub, and it was great. And so I thought, well, I'll do my thesis on Freemasonry, the history of Freemasonry, in the town where I'm from, Warrington. I thought, well, that's great. I can get some documents, and I can, and I went to the oldest lodge in the town, and got all these documents and minute books and things, and membership records, and did this little thesis, like just 15,000 words, and they liked it that much that they said, "Oh, do you want to do a PhD?" I thought, "Oh yeah, it sounds good." So, and it was at the time approaching the millennium when there was a lot of money around, and big push for education as well in England, well, in the UK,
Yeah.
and especially with it being connected to Liverpool, the University of Liverpool, which always seems to be at the forefront of not kind of like what's the phrase I was going to use, forward thinking, and it was very kind of risque. Like some of the studies that they were undertaking was like very risque. Like for example, when I put forward a thesis for the PhD in Freemasonry, history of Freemasonry, they loved it, and it was like, "Oh yeah, that's brand new. We've not heard of that before. Let's do that." Oh yeah, and there was a girl that was doing a PhD as well. At the same time, I was doing a PhD on witchcraft.
Yeah.
At the University of Liverpool, there was some really good kind of thesis proposals and studies going on. Yeah, this girl was doing one on witchcraft, and I was doing the Freemasonry one, and I think someone else was doing like an esoteric thing as well. It was great because there was all kinds of stuff like that, and you'd meet up with these people, and all doing this strange PhD kind of thesis stuff, and it was great, and it was a break from the norm as well, because I think they really wanted to do something challenging, something different, and there was funding as well, which was great. I mean, I had my PhD. I think a good percentage of it was funded, and so it's unheard of now, really. When still tutor people that are doing PhDs and things, and they're struggling all the time with money and funding, and you know, and that's the last thing you need, you know, on your shoulders while you're doing this kind of thing, because it's not easy, you know.
Right.
So yeah, so I did I went into the PhD in 2000, and yeah, you know, I was well into Freemasonry then at that point. You know, and it was a good time, you know, even though, you know, it was a very old, still had the the older outlook on things, where if you was a junior Freemason, you know, you kind of served table things, and, you know, in the festive board, and, you know, as a steward, you know, you had to serve as a steward for like a number of years.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't mind doing it. You know, it was good. You know, it was a good way of kind of getting into things and meeting people. You know, and yeah, it was great. I mean, it's good to see that it's changed though now.
It's a generational thing, right? Guys, they want
Yeah.
to be treated as equals from day one, and that's just our society is built people like that. It's just
Yeah. This is it, and you know that works sometimes. You know, I think you know the other thing as well is that obviously there's less people in lodges now. You know, like when I joined the lodge, which I've gone back into now. I've rejoined that lodge now
You've
because
come full circle.
I've come full circle because they were struggling. I think they were down to about 9 members.
Wow. Yeah, that'll happen.
So I rejoined because I'd always kept in touch with you know, you know, my ex-girlfriend's father. You know, I always kept in touch with him, and you know, he's a nice bloke. And so he said, "Oh, do you want to join again? Because we're struggling, and you know, bring some of your mates with you." But when I joined that lodge, there was about 50 in there. You know, you could never get a seat. You know, it was packed, and now there's 9. You know,
and you weren't railroaded right into a officer's chair like right away. It took a few years for you to get the nod to go in the line.
Oh yeah.
Did you fulfill the chairs in that original lodge at some point, or did you move?
Well, I'm going into the chair.
Oh,
I think next year in that original lodge. Yeah. But I ended up leaving that lodge because I was more concentrated in Liverpool at that time, and I just couldn't make it. So
yeah.
I actually joined a lodge in Liverpool for a time because I'd moved to Liverpool.
That's a whole other crisis with lodge leadership now, is that the average man in his working career is going to move on a 5-year interval.
Oh yeah.
So how do you have a 7 or 9 year lineup without losing guys?
Yeah.
Right. It's and so what used to be where, you know, having past masters step into a chair here or there considered that's just not something a healthy lodge does. Now it's commonplace. Right now that isn't necessarily about membership either. It's just about the guys that chose to advance can't advance anymore. They're going to move across the country or into a different country, right? And so
yeah, it's true. Yeah,
that happens a lot, and I imagine it's been happening for some time. But it takes us, as the craft, it takes us a while to notice things, trends, and behaviors, because we're so. I don't think it's a function of our anachronism. It's just we like things just so, and changing things.
Yeah, it's traditional. Yeah, it's very traditional. Yeah, you like to remain in a comfort zone.
Right. It's part of what
traditional
I think
comfort zone.
It's what attracted me to the craft, is some of this anachronism and the tradition and you're perpetuating something, right? But in order to react positively to change, you have to be flexible enough. Anyway, you got into the craft, and you've been in the craft a long time. We always ask not just why did you join, but what kept you around. Again, only about a third of guys stick beyond the first 5 or 6 years.
As I mentioned before, I've almost left a few times, really. I joined this Liverpool lodge. And I was based in Liverpool for a while. And obviously, while I was doing the PhD, I was teaching there as well. And this lodge was great at first. I had a few friends in there. And again, you know, that 40, 50 people in there. It's great. You know, vibrant lodge, loads of people, you know, always talking to people. And then we had the summer recess, you know, as you do. And then I came back in the September, and suddenly there's only about 10 people in there. You know, I thought, oh, you know, what's gone in? You know, what's happened here? You know, and it turns out there'd been a major fallout in the lodge between like a load of people and another load of people, and you know, 20 or so members had gone, and took away the people that used to visit as well, you know.
Right.
So the dynamic of the lodge changed, and it wasn't the same, you know. And the guy that actually introduced me in that lodge had left as well. So you know, all my mates had gone, you know, and it was quite strange. I was just turning up, and it was like this cliquey bunch, you know.
Yep.
So I thought, oh, I think I'll leave. I think, you know, it's not for me anymore. This, because I was the youngest guy in there, you know, and the rest were all like, you know, retired or, you know, in the 60s or whatever. And at the time, I was probably only in the 30s, you know. So I thought, well, it was also meeting in a golf club, which was all a bit kind of strange and a bit kind of traditional, shall we say. And I thought, oh, you know, I think I'll leave. And then they asked me to stay. They kind of like persuaded me to stay, and they gave me an office. When they found out I was thinking of leaving, you know, they gave me an office. So I started doing something. So I was off the stewards list and started doing something.
Give you a job.
So that made it more interesting.
Yeah.
And so I became a warden, one of the wardens. I think it was junior warden, and eventually, and you know, but the lodge still didn't develop. It was still very cliquey. And at the time, I was moving back to Warrington because I'd done the PhD. I was still working in Liverpool a lot, but I was also working all over. You know,
yeah.
I was getting job offers all over and things like that. And at that time, I'd brought out the first book, Genesis of Freemasonry, which was my PhD. That was the thesis, kind of re-edited slightly.
Right.
So I found myself kind of going around giving talks to lodges, you know, and so that was good. So that got me back really interested in it, you know, kind of going around to different lodges, and I was seeing how different lodges were working. And I always say to people, you know, if you're fed up with your lodge and you're not happy with it, just go somewhere else. Just move to another lodge.
Try a different lodge on. It's not the craft; it's just that lodge.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's like falling off a bike and blaming the bike for skin in your knee. Like it's no, just try a different lodge.
That's it. Just try a different lodge, and because of you know, the more modern kind of ideas that has permeated into Freemasonry now. You know, it is easier to go to a different lodge, and because the members are low, you know, you'd be welcomed into that lodge. You know, I'd be like, oh yeah, join, come here. You know, we need someone on the ladder. You know.
Yeah.
So we ended up joining the lodge that I gave a talk to, which was in Warrington. And you know, they seemed like a nice bunch of guys, and I'd visited a few times. And because I'd relocated back to Warrington, I thought, yeah, it's easier, you know, and why not? So I left the lodge in Liverpool and then went to another lodge in Warrington.
Huh.
And so that's where, you know, they put me on the ladder straight away, because obviously there were shorter people, and I ended up going through the chair, which was probably about 10 years ago now, I think. When I got to the chair.
And how did you find that experience? Not everybody enjoys their first time around when they're pushed into it. You know, because it's a lot of pressure, and by the time in Freemasonry, by the time you're good at any single job, you get promoted, right? It's like the It's like the embodiment of the Peter principle. You rise to your own level of incompetence and you don't go any further.
Yeah.
So you just get promoted until you're a has-been. And then it's time for your around here district positions or Grand Lodge positions. So I'll be DDGM of my district next year. So I'm fully aware of how this plays out. So it's interesting that you point out that you know, to keep you interested, they gave you a task, they gave you a job. Also, going around and talking about
when I told them I was leaving, you see, or I was thinking of leaving. Yeah. As soon as I mentioned that, you know, they said, "Oh well, you know, don't leave. Do you want a job? Do you want to, you know?" And I think at first they gave me assistant secretary because, like, I was obviously a lecturer, university lecturer now, and I was, you know, and then they said, "Oh, you can go on the ladder next year. You know, we'll give you a deacon job, and then, you know, you can, you're on the ladder." So, but you know that was good. That got me interested, and I was doing something. But it was still the same old clicky lodge. I noticed as well that not a lot of young people were joining.
Yeah.
There was a young guy joined, and then he left, and we were doing these ceremonies, and the people were leaving. You know, they'd reach second degree, third degree, and then they're gone. You know, and but yeah, when I joined the Lodge in Warrington, that kind of really revitalized things. You know, but that was also going the same way. You know, that by the time I'd got into the chair, you know, a lot of the old guys had passed on. A lot of the young guys had left. So it was a similar thing as well, like a similar story, you know. But I found the experience of being in the chair quite good, really.
But also, you talked about traveling and lecturing at different lodges. You've published a number of works, and I know a lot of this brushes up against what I would consider esotericism, Masonic esotericism, fringe rites, and that sort of thing. You want to talk a little bit more about your work, what you've published, and how it's affected your view of the craft and your own practice?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that struck me going back to the John Yarker biography, you know, he left mainstream Freemasonry and just embraced this esoterica. You know, he had the ancient and primitive rite, and he had the Swedenborgian rite, and he had, you know, he was part of a society of 8, and like-minded Masons. He was a member of the SRIA, early member, and he was involved in many other rites as well. You know, the orders, the Zuddamites was another one. You know, it's all in the book. Countless orders and rites that he was involved in, and
that wasn't unusual at the time for esoterically inclined, like Rosicrucian inclined.
That's it.
Philosophically inclined, like the French occult revival of the 1840s just exploded into English Freemasonry, right? The whole
I mean, you know, the
century was full of it.
Alivus Levi and you know, and
Martinist,
Jacques Etienne Marconi and
Cagliostro, all of this stuff.
Yeah, that all filtered into you know, Yarker's kind of framework, really, and he found that comfortable, and he found that spiritually enlightening, and he embraced it, and that was what he wanted from Freemasonry. So Freemasonry for him was a gateway. Mainstream Freemasonry was a gateway to this, and you know, he probably experienced what I experienced. You know, that kind of restriction. You know, I mentioned about the ladies' evening, and you know, when I was in the chair as worshipful master, and that to me was like, you know, that was ridiculous. That was like
why is there resistance? That
why is this such a problem? And it spoke to me.
You want to talk about that tension? That, I mean, I think that tension between esotericism, alchemy, Kabbalah, tarot, ceremonial magic, Solomonic magic, grimoire magic, the things that John Dee and Edward Kelly were up to, like none of that stuff is Freemasonry. But within the bounds of the craft, you're going to find enthusiastic practitioners of those forgotten sciences, right? And at that time, you're talking about Yarker. You're talking about
it's like when you're at the festive board and you're talking about, there's guys there that are talking about promotions and talking about, I had a weekend playing golf with the deputy provincial grand master, and then you get another bunch of guys that are talking about alchemy, and they're talking about John Yarker, and they're talking about magic, and they're talking about Rosicrucianism. And so you can see the differences. You can see, that split that was going on in Yarker's day. And Yarker obviously got sick to the back teeth of talking about someone kind of talking to the provincial grand master and the deputy and having a drink in the club, with these guys, and he wanted to find out about the Bektashi, and he wanted to delve right into the mysteries of ancient science, and he was fed up of all that stuff, and he thought, this isn't what I'm here for, and that's why he went that way.
Yeah, I'm interested in Yarker because there's a tension now. So this is what I want to talk about. There was tension then between esoterically, philosophically leaning Freemasons, and Yarker was on the business end of not a little bit of that, but a lot of that. But I think that tension is worse now. There's less tolerance in the wider craft for these sorts of things. And yet those students looking for those things are among the only people interested in the craft now. So the craft has this conundrum, but how are we going to satisfy these young men that come into the craft? And I have advice for them, at this Esotericism conference we run. Guys always ask, how can I bring this back to my lodge? Well, talk about the philosophy of the working tools and the tracing boards and the lodge carpets. There's enough symbolism. There's enough esotericism in the study of those symbols. There's tons of it there. You don't have to start talking about internal alchemy or get everybody a tarot deck or any of this stuff, right? But can you talk a bit about that tension? Have you seen that tension? Do you have a solution for the modern craft to deal with it?
And everyone's looking down on you and frowning and saying, "Oh, it's terrible." And then at the same time, you've got this kind of, well, I want to know about this stuff. I want to know about the deeper meanings of Freemasonry. I want to delve deeper into it. And I want to delve deeper into, the things that John Yarker delved into. The true meaning behind Freemasonry. And go on that journey to discover that. And one guy that did that was Wilmshurst in the early 20th century. He set up his own Lodge of Living Stones, and that became a very esoteric lodge. And he managed to get away with it because he was a Grand Lodge officer. It was a bit of a contradiction because he was a solicitor, Grand Lodge officer. He was mixing with Grand Lodge officers and the Masonic hierarchy, but was still this esoteric figure that was, being published in the Occult Review, and was inspired by Arthur Edward Waite and Yarker and all of these.
Yep.
And he was very much into the fact that Freemasonry was basically a search for the divine within. So
I know Ike Baker's been talking about Wilmshurst's main book, The Meaning of Masonry. I'm reading it again.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
can
Good.
appreciate,
Good.
again, if you're within the confines, certain confines, it's okay, right? But
Yeah.
still, there is a lot of suspicion. And for me, I got into the craft and was immediately talking about this stuff. And for that, I recommend to younger guys interested in this that just don't do that. Don't do what I did. It's too late for me. It's too late. Go on without me. But there's a way to approach this stuff that isn't threatening, and it is about personal work, and people are willing to talk about it. What about concordant body activity? Have you found any further light in masonry with concordant bodies? A lot of guys would criticize. They'd be like, "Oh, if you're interested in that, go here in North America. It's like SRIA, SRICF, or it's AMD or Scottish Rite, Rose Croix there, right? That's where you get that stuff. Don't bother my Blue Lodge with that. I just want to eat green beans and go to the pub with my buddies."
Yeah. 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 Well,
have you
well,
had any experience with that?
What you mean, like with side orders?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Is that what they call them there?
Well, I joined the SRIA after going through the chair.
Right.
In that lodge in Warrington, I joined the SRIA, so that was great. I love the SRIA. That's fantastic. I was, I'm soon to be grade 7, so and really nice order. And again, you meet some people in there that it's all about alchemy, or it's all about this and that, or whatever. But they're all doing their own little thing. They're all doing their own little researches.
Right.
And you can present papers as well. That's part of it, and which is good. But yeah, it's just a nice order. I really enjoyed the SRI. Mainly kind of like-minded, esoteric people, that are together. And through the SRI, there's other orders and kind of interesting.
I daren't ask a brother on the record about their own personal practice, but I'm going to ask you anyway. We could always edit this out. Anything you want to share with the class that you discovered that you're really quite passionate about? I know you keep one foot in the academic realm, and academics, especially in Western esotericism, never talk about practice. I know I have lots of academics that are friends that I know they have a personal practice, but they don't talk about it publicly. But I'll give you the choice here to either talk about that or give some advice to younger members of the craft that are interested in going to find this stuff. Like, where should they be looking?
Yeah, what for, like what more kind of, what are we talking about, magic? More magic stuff, or
you take the Kabbalah and Tarot that they instruct you in with SRIA or the meditative practices and bring that home and try and approach the mind of God directly, for example.
I've always been a reader of tarot cards, always.
Nice.
I started to get into that. Well, my grandmother on the mother's side was very much into reading tea leaves and divination and things like that. And she used to get people round. People used to come round for the tea leaves kind of read and things, stuff like that. And so that was my kind of introduction to that as a child, really. My nan used to tell me stuff and things like that.
That's cool.
And so I got into the tarot when I was a teenager. And then when university came, I was reading tarot cards then, and people used to buy me tarot cards as presents and things. So I got well into the tarot, and the history of the tarot as well. I used to give readings one time. People used to come round and we used to go to the pub, and or meet them in the pub and do a reading, especially in the student days. That was good. But yeah, And I've had some spiritual experiences, shall we say? I did a paper on cosmic consciousness.
Well, that's interesting. I'm gonna have to go find that.
Yeah. In in fact, we talked about Wilmshurst. I've actually putting out the Wilmshurst rituals at the moment with Dr. Robert Lomas. So
Excellent.
we're putting out all the craft rituals of Wilmshurst, and because it's the centenary of the Lodge of Living Stones next year, just about putting the finishing touches on a little booklet called Five Essays of Wilmshurst. So that's coming out soon as well in the next few weeks. So and that actually has the essay of cosmic consciousness in there. So I think I was always into that stuff. I was always into the esoteric stuff and the occult stuff, if you like, and it was there kind of bubbling away. And obviously the Freemasonry thing that happened in 1998, I think it was about 1998. That was like, as I mentioned before, it was the gateway that allowed me to go through and enter this deeper realm, you know. And obviously, being a historian, doing the PhD, and discovering all these characters that were involved in Freemasonry and writing about them, that enabled my kind of journey to kind of open up and look at others that had gone through the same thing. And going back to Yarker, I mean, he obviously had an experience, you know, a personal spiritual experience, which was due to smoking marijuana, and that's in the book. And we know about this because he wrote a letter to FGU. He was another esoteric Mason at the time, and he describes this kind of oneness with nature and with the divine, basically, and you know, so he was searching for that, and
if you read your P.D. Newman, have you read Alchemically Stoned or Angels in Vermilion?
Yeah, well, I know Mr. Newman. Yeah. We've corresponded. He's good. Yeah, he's good.
And the scholarship or not, you know, he makes an interesting argument that the alchemists and magicians of old were all like taking entheogens like crazy, and that quite a few fringe Masonic rites, Egyptian rite, the Cagliostro's rite.
Yeah, Cagliostro's right.
Maybe he was dosing his candidates like the bitter draught was hash, or maybe it was DMT, maybe it was both.
Yeah. Or some piece of the cassia that was being used.
Yeah,
he definitely took a drink. I think it was in the fellowcraft degree of Cagliostro's right, and there was a drink offered, a concoction, and
they put them in a vault, like in a darkened room, to think about what they did, and they had
that's right. Yeah,
and that's that red powder that Kelly couldn't see the angels without that red powder, right? It didn't work for Dee, but it certainly worked for Kelly, and that you know, looking back on that, and the formation of the Royal Society too, and Danny Newman talks a lot about that, how the list of things they were looking for to test were like it could be like a list of restricted drugs now, like all of them, the opium.
That's right. He references Genesis of Freemasonry. So you know, and we had this conversation about Ashmole and you know, a few others, Newton as well.
Now that somebody I mentioned, I was interviewing you. He's like, "Oh, you should approach Fig Newtons for a sponsorship," and I'm like, "What?" And they were like, "Well, he makes the connection between Isaac Newton and Desaguliers around the time of the formation of the United Grand Lodge and the writing of the Master Mason degree." Because you talk in one of your books, I don't recall where it is. Can you talk a little bit about that before we wind up with some promotional stuff?
Yeah, well, that was the genesis of Freemasonry. Yeah, my PhD, where I basically discussed how Sir Isaac Newton and Christopher Wren were obsessed with the design of Solomon's Temple.
That's correct.
They were searching for the divine cubit, if you like, the divine measurement.
Yeah.
And this was an obsession of the time, really. We're talking about the late 1600s, early 1700s, and this is exactly the time when Freemasonry was around in London, Westminster, and was. It brings us to 1717, with the foundation of the Grand Lodge, and obviously there was only 2 degrees then. There was only the entered apprentice and the fellow craft. We know this because the constitutions, kind of refer to the fellow craft as being the end of the journey, kind of thing.
Right.
And then suddenly, with the second edition of the constitutions, 1738, from memory, it's all changed, and there's a 3rd degree in there, the Master Mason's degree. So, and obviously they get the expose in 1730 that comes out, which has got the 3 degrees there. So something happened in the 1720s that sparked off this desire for a 3rd degree, and so who would be around then to kind of push this forward, to promote this, to be involved in this? So we look at the central figures, and we've got someone like Dr. Jean Theophilus Desaguliers, James Anderson, both very religious people, both forward thinkers, really, very intelligent people, and Desaguliers was a follower of Sir Isaac Newton.
Yeah.
And so this kind of investigation for Solomon's Temple, and it kind of makes sense that this inspired the formation of the 3rd degree, and mid 1720s at least. This is when I think most Masonic scholars now kind of accept that this was the time when the 3rd degree was created. And then obviously by the time we get to the 1730s, the Royal Arch, 1740s, Knights Templar, and so it goes, because Freemasons always want more, and this brings us back to the esoteric side. Freemasonry is this kind of gateway, and there's all these other little orders to investigate, to research, to get the answers from.
I like that. That little bit is glorious. That's something else I wanted to ask you about. We did talk about the tension between Freemasonry. In the 18th and especially into the 19th century, and Joseph Wages was just here talking about this, there was an explosion of continental rights in North America and in England.
I think it's just an easy way to make money.
It was a way
to kind of say, people. I've got all these secrets. Do you want to join this society? And I mean, Count Cagliostro, he's kind of down as like Giuseppe Balsamo, the trickster, and
sure.
And so he was at it, shall we say, to give it the English expression.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, he certainly had some kind of mysticism about him. He had some kind of charisma and allure, and he was very successful at what he did. I know he got arrested in the end in Italy, and and that was basically the end of him. And I think the English saw through him as well. He visited England, and there's that famous cartoon that was printed of him, and he's dressed in a military uniform in the cartoon, and so yeah, I think certain people liked him and went with him, and other people saw through him. And I think by the time you get to the most eras in Freemasonry, there's always been people out to make money. In the 18th century, there was a group. I can't remember what they were called now. It's in the genesis of Freemasonry. I think they were nicknamed Mutton Masons because they were being paid in mutton to put people through Freemasonry. The craft 3 degrees. And they were paid in mutton.
I've read that
and
book,
they were referred to as the
I
Mutton
don't
Masons.
recall that story.
The Mutton Masons. Yeah. It's in Genesis of Freemasonry. And it's an interesting little thing because obviously this was just one lodge that popped up, and they were being paid in mutton.
Bring this back to Yarker, because Yarker was contemporary with so many of those charlatans.
He was a very intelligent man. Even though he was a working class guy, really. He was a northerner and he was a working class guy, and he did very well as an agent. He was a translator as well. He kind of got on with foreigners and things, and that's mentioned in the book how he kind of went to various different countries and got on with people and business wise. But yeah, he was. I think he was intelligent. He was wasn't really taken in by people. He was kind of always interested and eager, and he was probably willing to kind of give people a chance, and Yarker wasn't an academic, so he had never learned to kind of read a text and judge it professionally and question it. Like if you read the arcane schools, there's a lot of fancy in there. Obviously, there's a lot of flying fancy in there. Really, that's interesting because it puts you in the mind of Yarker, and it's interesting to read because of that. But he makes a lot of jumps, and one of the critics in AQC kind of mentioned that always connecting Freemasonry up to everything. All these like every secret society in the world or something.
Sure.
That
was commonplace. It wasn't just him. That was pretty common.
Yeah. So he was part of that kind of mentality on that, that things were connected, going way back to the Bektasian Chaldeans and all that kind of stuff.
You still active?
Sorry?
You still active at Quater Coronati? I was just there when Trevor McEwen was installed as the worshipful master.
Oh yeah. I'm still a member. I don't make it down as often as I can. Well, I can't make it this May, because I'm going down to Cornwall I'm attending the Bude Literary Festival.
I'm speaking on May 13th in the cusp for the Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of British Columbia and Yukon. If you look on your Google Maps and see where Nakusp is, I've been almost every city in British Columbia. Well, all the southern British Columbia, south of Prince George. I've been, but Nakusp is one place I've never been. And if you want to see remote, go have a look at where Nakusp is. It's a tiny.
Yeah.
Anyway,
well, in 2013, I was in Canada. I was.
Yeah, you came to Winnipeg, right?
Winnipeg, yeah. I was in the Midwest Conference there, and yeah, it was great. Yeah.
A lot of those events, I think a lot of those events still run, but I've been so focused on Esotericism and Freemasonry Conference. We've been doing that every September in Seattle for the last 10 years or 11 years. Lon DuQuette coming this year, Ike Baker coming this year. But we would love to invite you in a future year. Even if we get you here in person, that would be lovely. You're still young enough to travel. A lot of the guys, I talked to Julian Rees a few months ago, and he's like, man, I'm not traveling to the States right now. And that's fair comment. but
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
like it's a 9-hour flight to get to the west coast of North America. I don't know if you've ever been to Vancouver or Seattle, but it's beautiful here. It's summer weather right now. It's going to be probably 28 degrees today. And we would love to have you here at some point in the future to talk about, whatever projects you're doing. Speaking of
Yeah.
project, what is
Just
what
let me
is
know.
next? What is next for you? You were talking about that pamphlet with the Wilmshurst ritual.
Yeah, well, yeah, we're doing these booklets with the Wilmshurst rituals. Yeah, so there's 5 rituals: opening and closing, the 3 degrees, and the installation, all put in a nice little slipcase.
Nice.
So it's a really nice looking set of rituals. Um,
When is that? When
uh,
is that shooting to be published?
well, there's 3 of them published already, and the 4th one is due out in a few weeks' time, and then the final 5th one is due out in the summer. And so we're going to present them in this split case, which is really nice, and it's through Porchway. Um, uh, that's a new kind of Masonic publisher that's started
Oh, you'll have to
in
put me in
Yorkshire.
touch. You'll have to put me in touch.
Yeah, yeah, we'll do it. I'll send you the link. Yeah, Porchway. And I'm also doing a few kind of booklets for them as well, because they're specialising in Wilmshurst, being a Yorkshire printer and publisher. And obviously Wilmshurst was from Halifax. He was based in Halifax in Yorkshire. So it's a big thing there at the moment, and with a centenary of the Lodge of Living Stones next year. So yeah, that's the current thing. But I'm also I've got a book with Lewis Masonic planned, Jacques Setti and Marconi, and looking at the first 18 degrees of the Memphis Rite. So that's a nice publication that's in the queue. And I'm kind of slowing down a bit because I've got the children, the three children, daughter's 9, son's 6, and a baby as well. So yeah, it's kind of busy. So I've kind of slowed down the writing a bit. I won the Adler Award for the John Yarker book the end of 2024. So that got me on a few trips abroad again. I went to the States again, and Guernsey, which was beautiful last year.
Beautiful.
Um,
Nice.
Channel Island, and all lodges everywhere, which was great, talking and about Yarker and things.
I'm sure we'll be in touch when something else hits the printing press. We can talk about, maybe we'll get you back on to talk specifically about Wilmshurst and the ritual. And I
Yeah,
expect
yeah,
that
it's a
to be
big
a
thing
popular
next year
subject.
with Wilmshurst. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
expect that to be a popular.
Fascinating character. I mean, for esoteric Freemasonry, Wilmshurst is the go-to guy, really. Some of his writings are just amazing, and he really does suggest, that Freemasonry is a pathway for the divine, really, to kind of commune with the divine.
Yeah.
It's
Introduce the candidate, introduce their higher aspects to themselves.
yeah, exactly.
Well, brother, Dr. David, is it brother, doctor, or doctor, brother?
Whichever way you want to do it.
Brother, Dr. David Harrison, thank you so much for so much of your time today. We ran almost 45 minutes over time. I promised you it's about an hour, and then we were almost 2. But, once we get rolling, it's hard to stop.
Oh, yeah. Could go on forever.
Thanks for listening today. You can support the show by liking, sharing, and subscribing on your favorite podcast syndicator. Even more helpful, leave us a review. We are looking to create a directory of Freemasonic events and publications. If you are aware of something coming up, please let me know by email. In the meantime, check out the Masonic Conference's website at masonicconferences.com. Esotericism and Freemasonry Conference will be held on Saturday, September 19th. Our keynote speaker will be Lon Milo DuQuette, author of The Tarot Architect. Get your tickets in advance by RSVP to esotericmasonry@gmail.com. For other events, check out our calendar at mystictie.com, and don't forget to sign up for our newsletter while you are there. Graphics and web hosting are by Art Szabo Creative. A special thanks to Organist for our theme music. Happy to meet, sorry to part, and happy to meet again.